Hello, everyone. I'm Ryan from RyansFortress and Megahit Media, and welcome to episode 4 of the Megahit podcast. We've made it to episode 4. I feel like I say that in every single episode. We made it to episode whatever. I don't know how long I'm going to be saying that, but you know what? Until I find a more catchy intro or something like that, then I think that's what we're going to stick with because I've made it to episode 4. So yeah. So welcome, of course, to episode 4. We have a pretty fun episode today, a bit of a unique episode when it comes to the topics. I have a lot of stuff I want to talk about, including stuff other than the main topics of the episode. There's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff that I just want to talk about in general. So first of all, with the podcast, we have finally moved on from just YouTube. If you didn't see, I tweeted about this a bit last week. We are now on, if you're still watching this on just YouTube, we are now on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. So I'm trying to get it to as many platforms as I can. I'm still very new, of course, to podcasting. So I'm still figuring out all of the little bells and whistles of how stuff works. But yeah, I would like to get it to even more platforms in the future. But yeah, so right now we are on those 3 platforms, and we will still be on YouTube, of course. I think it would be cool to do video podcasting as well. I think we'll get there, but yeah. So I think that's where we are for now. We're gonna be on those 4 platforms, still running with the same schedule. So yeah, that's that. So that's, if you didn't see on Twitter, just if you don't just want to watch this on YouTube, it is on those as those other places as well. So yeah, if you are watching this on YouTube and do want to see it in other places, links are all in my Twitter, or I'll leave them in the description of this YouTube video. So, but yeah, so anyway, moving on from just the podcast, a lot of stuff has been happening. So first, I was going to mention this last week, but I completely forgot about it. So like 2 weeks ago, I was just browsing through on the Switch 2, just browsing through the eShop and the NSO app. Oh, I could not say that well. So the NSO app, especially for me, because that I've just never really explore. I feel like the eShop is pretty self-explanatory, but there are some interesting things you'll find in the NSO app. On the console itself, I'm not talking about like the phone app. I'm talking about the real app on the, well, I guess not the real app, but the console application. And so I was just browsing through it a little bit, and the bottom tab in the app, it talks about the expansion pack, which I have. I bought the expansion pack. And it just has a little slideshow of like some of the stuff that are included when you get the expansion pack. And the first slide shocked me because it was something I had no idea. So the first tab, or the first slide of this NSO expansion pack tab, was talking about the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 editions. And I was like, oh, why is that here? Why is that like in this section? And I clicked on it and I was like, wait a minute. With expansion pack, you can actually buy the upgrade packs free of charge, which I was surprised about, because it's like first of all, as I wouldn't say I've made clear, but I am not a big Zelda fan. I've been playing more games recently, and I've been getting a little bit more into the series. But Zelda has never been my go-to franchise, especially Breath of the Wild. I've tried that game a couple of times, and I just never was able to get into it. I've given it a chance, and it just isn't really my kind of game. So hate me all you want, but so I'm only saying that because this isn't like a big deal to me. But because I wasn't going to get these upgrade packs anyway. But I thought that was kind of interesting because I was thinking, like, did we know about this? And I just completely forgot. And I looked back at the reveal of those upgrade pack or those Switch 2 editions during the Switch 2 Direct in April, and it doesn't mention that at all, as far as I could see, unless I just missed it somehow. I don't think in anything big like that it mentions that. So I never knew that until I saw that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So yeah, if you have the NSO expansion pack and you did not know that you can get both upgrade packs for free, there you go. It is just the upgrade packs. It's not like the like if you don't own the games alone, then you of course can't get it. Which, I mean, if it came with both, I mean, I would be getting Tears of the Kingdom immediately just to have it, because I don't own Tears of the Kingdom for obvious reasons. But you know what? So it was a pretty cool thing I saw. So I thought I'd mention that because I was going to mention it last week. I completely forgot about it. But I thought that was like just weird that they never mentioned it, unless it could have been something on like Nintendo Today. It probably was, but I really haven't checked Nintendo Today much in the past like 2 months, so I would not know that. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting find. A little bit more news. I tweeted about this. I decided to buy the last 2 Paper Mario games in their original versions that I do not own. So now I can proudly say that for the first time in my life, I now own every original physical copy of a game in a franchise, I guess is kind of a way of putting it. But basically, I do now own all 6 original carts and discs or whatever for of the Paper Mario games. So I've had Color Splash and Origami King for a while. I got those for like birthday, Christmas, whatever. And then Super Paper Mario and Paper Mario Sticker Star I got last year because I was playing through all the games. But of course, T2ID I played on Switch, and I the original Paper Mario game. I actually got it a few years ago before I got Origami King because I was expecting to get that for my birthday, and I actually bought it on the Wii U eShop to test to try it out because I was like, I'm getting this new game, so why not like play the other games? But I did not get into it at all. So, but I do have it on there. I do have it on the Wii U, and of course it's on Switch as well on the NSO app. So, but I did finally find the cart. I found it on Walmart actually, which I was kind of surprised about. It was like I think it was like $10 on Walmart, and so like someone I guess was selling it through Walmart, which I didn't really know you could do. But and then of course I got the T2ID mini disc from the GameCube, and that was a hassle. And the reason the T2ID, first of all, it's hard to find a good price for it. The one I bought was like $35 on eBay, which is a really good price, I would say, because usually I find ones that are like at least 50, 60, which I'm not a hardcore collector, so for a game that not only is as old as it is, but I already own a better version of it, I'm not willing to spend full price of a game today on that. So it's like buying a game twice. It's like, why would you do that? So, but I did find a decently priced one. But really, it wasn't just the price of the game itself. It's also like because I have a Wii, I don't have a GameCube, but I have a Wii. But for that, you don't just need the game to play it. You need a GameCube controller and a memory card, which is crazy. Like, it's essentially, if you're playing it on the Wii, you're playing a GameCube. So you need the GameCube controller for the ports, or else it's not going to work. You can't just use a Wii controller, which kind of stinks, but I mean, for me, it's nice anyway, because it gives you that original experience using that original controller. Although using a memory card is weird. I was wondering if you could use an SD card through the Wii, but basically everything else on the Wii is kind of shut off when you go into GameCube mode, so it kind of stinks. It's a bit of extra money, so I didn't really pay $35. I said last week, I think I said last week, I had a retro game store near my house. I bought a GameCube controller. It was like a third-party one, but it was only like $15. And then there was what am I thinking? A memory card, which I found on Target, actually. I think someone was selling on a Target or something, but it was like the 3D or a third-party brand as well. That was like $10. So really, I spent $50-$60 just to play this game, even though I only spent $35 on the game itself, which is a little bit annoying. But at least now if I want to play more GameCube games, I can just buy the game itself, which is going to be nice. So anyway, that was a pretty long introduction, but I had a lot of stuff I wanted to talk about. There's a lot of stuff I wanted to cover. So let's move on from the introduction. And first of all, before we move on to the news, we don't have a lot of news to talk about, but we do have a few headlines. But the timeline for the episode today. So same thing as we've been doing in the schedule of our segments. So our movie segment, we're going to be talking about my top 7 most anticipated movies for the rest of the year, which is pretty interesting list, but I'm excited to talk about some of those. And it is a little different. I did tweet my list of like the 10 most like a month ago or something like that, but it has kind of changed a little bit, and there were actually some movies I forgot were coming out for that list, so this is kind of a revised version, and of course I'll be talking about them much more than just a tweet's length. So that's our movie segment. And then our game segment is what I'm really excited to talk about. We're going to be talking about The Last of Us because I just played the game for the first time and I wanted to talk about it. And then, so that's that. And then MLB, or not MLB, sports segment. We are going to be talking about MLB, but our sports segment, just talking about some recent Philly stuff. And I also want to address the kind of breaking news from last night that apparently Rob Manfred wants to change the geographical alignment and all that kind of crap. So we're throwing that as well. So that is our timeline for today. So now we're finally moving on to news, and so news. Like I said, not a lot of headlines, not a lot of big stuff to cover in terms of related to the kind of stuff I would cover in a new segment for this episode, but there is some interesting stuff. So of course, starting off with box office. So Nobody 2, the big movie of the week, debuts in third place at $9.2 million, still behind Weapons and Freakier Friday. Those two movies are still leading the pack. I think Weapons is at, let's take a look. I have the tab right here. Weapons is at $24 million weekend. Nobody 2 with only $9 million. So that's almost 3 times that, which is crazy. Although at the same time, Weapons this weekend still made more money than Freakier Friday and Nobody 2 combined, which is pretty crazy. I still have not seen it yet. I really want to see it, but I have not seen it yet. I really want to though. So Weapons is insane. I mean, for a horror movie, it's just doing incredible. It's at $148 million worldwide, which is nuts, which is like insane. So huge for that movie. It's getting such great reviews, so definitely got to go check it out. Freakier Friday right behind is at $86 million. So that's the box office numbers. And into some more news. Thunderbolts is coming to Disney Plus August 27th. It was announced a couple days ago. It's coming much sooner than I thought. And it's really just the announcement of that. It seems like usually when they announce a big movie like that is coming to Disney Plus, it's usually coming like at least a month later. So just a couple weeks is actually pretty surprising. So Thunderbolts is coming to Disney Plus August 27th. I believe it's already on digital now, but I'm just going to wait. Of course, I don't really care. But so it's pretty cool. I think this was a really good movie. I definitely enjoyed this one. This one definitely felt like classic Marvel. So this was a really good one. If you didn't see it in theaters, definitely see it here. I feel like this is going to blow up on Disney Plus. Like, it didn't have great theater numbers, didn't have great box office numbers, but I think it's going to do really good on Disney Plus. I think it's going to blow up. All right, next up, this isn't really movie news or anything, but at Universal Orlando, there's some news. Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket Universal Orlando closes after 16 years. I rode this ride a couple of years ago when I went to Universal, and it was an okay ride. It's just kind of cool that you can listen to music while you ride it. But it's just an okay ride. It's a very long ride actually, but it's just not the most comfortable. I don't remember it being very comfortable. I remember it being a little bit like it. I'm not gonna say it hurt, but it wasn't like the smoothest ride. So I'm not too sad to see it go. I mean, then again, I'm not really at Universal that often to care that much. But this is pretty big news. It's been a staple of that theme park for over almost like a decade and a half, more than a decade and a half. So it is a bit, bit of a surprise, but new experience is coming soon. So we'll see what that is. Next up, after massive numbers on Netflix, K-pop Demon Hunters is getting a limited theater release this weekend. I am pumped for this. I am super pumped. I'm pumped. I already talked about in the last episode how much I love this movie. It is quickly becoming one of my favorite animated movies of the past, decade. And just such a great movie. I've been listening to the music like crazy, and I really want to hear the music on the big screen. So see it on the big screen here with the big speakers, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The only unfortunate thing about it is that it's only coming, near me at least, it's only coming to the United Artists Regal Theater near me, which does not have any like IMAX or Dolby. And it sounds like even the theaters that do have those larger the larger formats, it looks like it's only going to be in normal ones anyway, which makes sense because it's a Netflix movie. It wasn't made for IMAX, so it does make sense, but it's really just the music I want to hear on the big screen. I feel like they could get away with an upscale, but it's whatever. It's not a huge deal, but it's just hearing it on the big screen is what's really exciting me. So that is just this weekend. That is just Saturday and Sunday, a very limited release. It looks like it's mostly Regal Theaters, and that's about it. It might only be Regal Theaters. I think it only is. It might be in some other like very small branches. I know it's not in any AMCs near me, but so I think it's just Regal. I'm not 100% sure, but so it's pretty cool. All right, getting into a couple things with games. Drag X Drive, I think that's what you call it now. I've been calling it Dragon Drive, which I think sounds cooler than Drag X Drive. I don't know, but anyway, it debuted last week with a mediocre 63 on Metacritic, and what I'm hearing from all the reviews is that it's very mediocre. I did not get this game. I have decided to save my money. I am getting Kirby in a couple weeks, or I guess next week. I will definitely be getting the Kirby upgrade. So, and it's I think it's like the same price. I think they're both like $20. I think Dragon Drive might be 30, but it's about the same. But I mean, it didn't look that appealing. But and of course, it's not getting great reviews anyway. So, it's one of those. It's like one of those things that's just a fad, really. It's like it's basically the ARMS of the Switch 2 era. So, something that's just a small little game, not too much to it, that's supposed to show off a new feature with these controllers. So, that's pretty much it. And then our last bit of news for the day, just today, as I'm filming this, Nintendo announces a Kirby Air Riders Direct for August 19th with Masahiro Sakurai hosting. So I would assume that by the time this podcast comes out, this event has already happened, but I'm not 100% sure. But you know what? Kirby Air Riders, I'm hyped for it. It looks like it's going to be a pretty cool game, and I will mention this now, because I'm not talking about stuff like this in the gaming segment. I will mention this, though, because I saw people talking about how Kirby Air Riders might be getting delayed to 2026. I think at this point, I think this is going to be the holiday title this year. I think this is coming out in like November, December. And I think Metroid is getting delayed until next year. I think there's something going on with that game, and they're just not ready to show more of it yet. And so I think that's going to start the year next year. I don't think it's going to come too late next year, like maybe like February, or might be the March title. I could see that, but I do not think it's going to come out this year. I don't even think there's time for it because you still got Hyrule Warriors, you still got Pokemon, which I think is in October, and then I think there's something else in like September. I think there's something else I'm missing, but yeah, I think that's the big stuff. And of course, there might be even more that we still don't know. So I think that they're going to delay Metroid until next year. I think they want to give that as big of a spotlight as they can. So, but yeah, so Kirby Air Riders Direct. See how that goes tomorrow. And yeah, so that's our news for this podcast this day. Now let's get into our movie segment. And got an interesting topic today. These are my 7 most anticipated movies for the rest of 2025. And yeah, there's a lot of movies coming out in the rest of the year. And there are some, I wouldn't say obscure movies, but there are some movies that are a little bit like, more interesting movies. So yeah, we'll see how these go. We'll see what turns out for them. So, but first of all, before we get into the list, I would like to talk. Sorry, I'm talking very slow. I'm trying to do something real quick. But before we get into the list, I want to talk about some of the movies I saw recently. And the 2 recent movies I've seen are both sequels, actually. And I have some interesting things to talk about. So I'll start with the one I probably have the least to talk about, which is Nobody 2. So I just saw Nobody like a week ago. I think I actually talked about it in my last podcast. And I thoroughly enjoyed that one. And of course, I love the John Wick movies as well. And Nobody 2 I thought was really cool too. I think it was very much, on par with the original. I think they're both like right there with each other. They're similar structure-wise anyway. It really did feel like Home Alone 2 for me. Like it really does feel like that's what it is. It's the same structure movie. It's just in a more interesting location than just, at home, really. So like this is really like Home Alone 2, honestly. And it's a cool concept. I like it's like and everything makes sense too. Like one of the details of the movie is the big thing is that this town that they go to on vacation, because he wants to go on a vacation, and he takes his family to this town that turns out to be pretty much a facade for this, huge, secretive business thing with this crazy, person leading it. That's a very simple way of putting it. But I do like at least that it makes sense. It's not like it's not like he's just going there and then, it just turns out that that's a town with like that. Like it actually does make sense with like the dad took him there as a kid. So, and then he wanted to go back, but it turns out the dad took him there because he had a mission there and had to do with that. So it does make sense. There's elements of that I think were cool, how they made sense like that. And yeah, so, and of course the action is super cool, super fun. So yeah, this was a pretty fun movie. It's just one of those like popcorn entertainment. It's not bad, but it's not like, the greatest thing ever. It's just, just fun action and a decent story. So that was Nobody 2. The other one I have much more to talk about is Happy Gilmore 2. I love the original Happy Gilmore. Personally, I am not a huge comedy guy. I'm not a huge fan of comedy movies, especially older ones. Sorry about that. Older comedy movies for me, they just don't really hit as much. There's only very few from like, before the 2010s that I like actually really enjoyed. But Happy Gilmore is one of them. I do think it's a very fun movie. And there's tons of Adam Sandler movies that I think are just okay and just are too silly, especially his newer ones. But I think a couple of his classics, including Happy Gilmore, are very good movies. It's a classic movie. Very funny. So I was sort of excited to see Happy Gilmore 2, but I was nervous it was going to be just, not really like anything more special. I thought it was just going to be okay. And it did not exceed my expectation. It actually did the complete opposite. It, I don't know, exceeded my expectations. I don't even know how you say that. It did not live up at all. It wasn't even funny to me. Like it's a comedy that I literally had a straight face for 95% of the movie. And there were very few moments I actually laughed. And it just wasn't funny. And it wasn't a fun movie in general. It's like Happy Gilmore is now much older and they kill his wife, like literally, like the first opening scene, his wife is killed in the weirdest way too. It's just super stupid. Then he quits golf. He turns into this crazy alcoholic, and it's not even fun to watch him. You know what I mean? He's just, I mean, honestly, pardon my language, he's just a dick, and it's not really like a fun, like character like that. It's just not a fun character, and he doesn't really get more fun. Like he doesn't seem at all like the same character from the first movie at all. He doesn't. He seems completely different, and it's just not very interesting. And then a lot of the funny stuff, especially in like the second half of the movie, is just a lot of callbacks to the original movie, and ones that not only are they not even very good callbacks, or not even like they don't land very well, but they also literally will show the clips from the original movie, which is just, I've already made it clear how much I hate when movies do that. And this one is another excessive one that shows all of these old clips to remind you like, oh yeah, he said that. It's like, we don't need that. Like even for me, like there are some things that I didn't remember, some jokes that they called back. And it's like, okay, like, now I know what the joke is, but like, it's not, I don't want to see that all the time. It just makes it feel like they're being forced too much. Like the nostalgia is being forced, and I don't like it at all. So yeah, I was not a fan of the movie. I thought it was just a very bland movie. It's honestly, at this point, it's probably one of my least favorite movies of the year. But yeah, so definitely did not meet my expectations at all, which was very sad. You know what? That's kind of what I expected. I didn't expect it to be anything good. So yeah. And so that's the recent movies I have seen. And yeah, I also did finish, I actually forgot to put it here. I did finish The Last of Us Season 2. And I'll talk more about Last of Us, the game later. That's, of course, our gaming segment. But the show I thought was, because I really loved the first show. It's why I wanted the first season, which is why I wanted to play the game. And the second season was like okay. Like I even looked online, and it's like the reviews for it are very hit or miss. There's people who love the second game, and there's people who don't as much. Personally, for me, it wasn't bad, but it was not nearly as good as I wanted it to be and thought it would be. And I will say that part of that is just because of how good the first story was, first season, first game, whatever. It's such a phenomenal story, so it is very hard to, come after that. And it does some interesting things. It takes some huge risks. Of course, it kills Joel like almost immediately, which is crazy, and it focuses much more on Ellie. So it is definitely interesting. There's some big things here. It's not bad at all, but it was just like okay for me, especially with how great the first season was. But we'll get more into Last of Us later, of course. Now let's get into our big topic of this here podcast, or of this movie segment. I don't know what I'm talking about right now. Movie segment. We're talking about my 7 most anticipated movies for the rest of 2025. So these are all movies that have not come out in theaters yet. They have not just ones I haven't seen. Like I'm not going to have like Weapons on here because it's already out. And these are all movies that have not come out yet that I am excited to watch from now until the end of the year. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's get right into it. Starting off at number 7, we have The Running Man, starring Glenn Powell. And this is a film that, so first of all, there is an original version. I think it's like a Stephen King novel it's based off of. And I think the original one is, I think it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think. I could be wrong though, but I know it's like a big action star. And but I've never seen it. I've never even heard of it until this movie. Until seeing the trailer for this one, and it's just there's a lot of things from the trailer that stuck out to me that just made me go like, this is going to be a fun movie. It's I think the story is really cool. It's like the John Wick 3 story where it's, everyone is against this one guy. Only this one is like a game show, and there's all this stuff going on. It seems like it's a pretty cool concept, and it's just, something like that, the possibility for so much action, and it's just super, super fun. And of course the cast, the main one being Glenn Powell, and he's been in such great action movies recently. There's an action movie he was in, I'm forgetting what it's called, but he was in it I think it was last year. The movie came out. I forget what it's called, but it got such great reviews, and I really want to see it. I haven't gotten to it yet. I'll look for it now, but I think he is just growing to be like this generation's big action star. So, and of course, I loved him in Top Gun. I think he was fantastic. So it's really fun to see him in this, and yeah, so I am really excited to see it. Let's see, the movie is called Hitman. That's what it is. So he was in that. I got really good reviews. I want to see that. But Glenn Powell, of course, I think he can lead a movie at this point, without trouble. And but the main thing that was sticking out to me at first was it is being directed by the great Edgar Wright, who has directed many great action films, with him directing one of my favorite action films of all time, really, Baby Driver. I love that movie so much. I'm so sad it's not on Netflix anymore. But so Running Man, it just looks super fun action, and I'm excited for that. So that comes out in November. Here, actually, I think I have a list here. Or actually, you know what? I have a big fancy computer in front of me. I should just look it up. I believe this comes out in November. Let's take a look. Comes out on November 7th, 2025. So there's a ton of huge cast, really. Some I'm even forgetting right now, like Michael Cera. So some cool stuff here. Number 6 is Zootopia 2. I want to mention also is Zootopia 2. One of the things I was thinking here, which I'm excited for Zootopia 2 because I'm hoping it's going to be at least just as fun as the first movie. I really don't think the story is going to be nearly as good. I hope it's not like Moana 2 levels, but because Moana 2 was definitely a letdown compared to the first one. I hope this one has more Inside Out 2 than Moana 2, in terms of how good of a sequel it is. But I'm really excited for it. I think it looks like it's going to be fun, and I'm just excited to see more of it. To be honest, I'm just excited to see more trailers, because I do want to see what is this movie going to do that's going to make it as impactful and emotional as the first film was. I am excited for this film. Of course, I love Disney animated movies very much, so I'm just excited for it in general, especially because it's not a musical, so we're all good with that. I also want to mention here, because I've been thinking this for the past couple of weeks with Zootopia 2. This doesn't really have anything to do with my excitement for the movie, but it's the fact that I didn't really know where to throw this in. I'm just going to throw it in right now because I want to talk about it. And it has to do with the Oscars next year, where I am in a state right now where I feel like when it comes to the big categories of the Oscars, really just award shows in general, especially when it comes to I feel like Best Animated Feature past few years, there's been like two big movies at the top. There's been like two big ones at the top. I remember 2021 was like Mitchells vs. Machines and Encanto. And of course, the one got gypped. We'll talk about that later. Actually, I don't know why I said that because we won't talk about that later. I think I mentioned it in the last podcast, so I've already made it clear that Encanto should not have won. But 2022, I'm trying to think. I think that was the oh shoot, I'm blanking right now. I think that was the Pinocchio one, the Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. But of course that year still had like Turning Red as well, and a couple other big movies. 2023, I think, was The Boy and the Heron. I think that's what won in 2023. But of course you also had like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is amazing. So that was up there too. And then last year, Wild Robot and Flow were neck and neck. And then of course you still had Inside Out 2, which was really good. So, but honestly, in my opinion, for this year, for the next Oscars, I will be shocked if K-Pop Demon Hunters does not win Best Animated Feature. I am saying it now. I'm excited for Zootopia 2, and I think it's going to be at least pretty good. But I just do not think there is no way that the movie is good enough where it is better than K-Pop Demon Hunters and ends up winning the award for it. There's no way. And there's no other animated movies, I feel like, other than that have a chance at beating it. Unless it's like a smaller movie that's much less popular and stuff. So, I mean, that's just where I am right now. Like, I feel like there's nothing else you can convince me will beat out K-Pop Demon Hunters at this moment. So, yeah, I want to throw that in because Zootopia 2, I feel like, is the only one that could beat it. I don't think, Elio stands a chance, even, or if Dogman, I don't even think that would be nominated, but it's another animated movie. So, yeah, I want to throw that. But anyway, just for Zootopia 2, I am very excited for it. I think the first one's such a great movie. So, yeah. Number 5, a movie I am just stupidly excited for because of its wacky concept and the fact that it's a true story. Roof Man looks awesome. It is Channing Tatum. It is based on a true story. It is Channing Tatum is an escaped criminal who is literally hiding in a Toys R Us break room, pretty much. It looks so funny, and the cast, of course, next to Channing Tatum, Kristen Dunst. There's Peter Dinklage. And a couple, I think there's a couple others that I'm blanking on right now, but yeah, I mean, just those three in general can be really, really fun together. So I am hyped to see this movie. Every time I see the trailer, I'm just like, oh my God, I cannot wait to see this because it looks like it's just going to be so fun. And like I said, it's based on a true story. So it's just crazy to think that this actually happened. So Roof Man is coming out in October, and I am hyped to see it. It looks like it's going to be one of the most fun movies of the year, and yeah. Plus, Channing Tatum, I think, is just really funny in general. He's in Gambit, in Deadpool. He was in Fly Me to the Moon last year, which I thought was like an okay movie. It wasn't like anything too special, but I thought that was a fun movie. And then I think there was like something else he was in recently, but I'm kind of blanking on it. But so yeah, I think he's getting back up there, and I'm excited to see him in this. Next up, number 4 is Wicked for Good. I very highly enjoyed the first Wicked film. I knew very little about it going into it because I've never seen the musical, and I only knew like Defying Gravity really, and I really enjoyed it. I'm really excited to see what's coming next. So Wicked for Good, November, coming out Thanksgiving. I will be there probably with my whole family. So yeah, so that's that. It just like I feel like it can't be bad. Like this is one where it's like Wicked is such a beloved musical, and with how great the first Wicked movie was, there's no way they can mess up the second one. And especially with how great the cast is, there's no way. So yeah, I am very, very excited to see this one. I do know a couple of the songs, and they're really good, of course. So yeah, Wicked for Good coming out Thanksgiving. I will be there. Next up, number 3. So this number 3 pick is one I am excited and incredibly nervous for at the same time, which is kind of why it's just at number 3, because I'd say it's probably the one I'm looking forward to the most, but it is one that I'm very nervous about, which is Tron Ares. So I will mention this as well. My dad is a massive Tron fan, and so that's part of the reason why I'm interested in this movie at all. I've seen the other 2 Tron movies. I don't really remember them very much. I would like to watch them again, but of course, they're, especially Tron Legacy, very mixed reviews. Very mixed reviews. And it of course it has great visuals, but that's really the main thing. This new Tron movie I think looks cool, but it just, this is one I was kind of thinking like it would be cool. Like imagine if this one really does, reach the heights of like, the highest of expectations, 90% on Rotten Tomatoes kind of level. But I just feel like just watching the trailer, like it looks like it's going to be cool. I'll say it has potential, but in my eyes, I cannot see it being anything higher than a 60-70% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it will be good. I think the visuals, of course, will be fantastic. But it just looks like it looks like a cool concept, but it just doesn't look like it can be anything too like amazing. I will be shocked if it does that, and will be really excited for it. I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to see the visuals, and I think it's just going to be a really fun movie at least. So hopefully Disney will give us actually a good Tron movie. But yeah, I'm excited for it nonetheless. Going to see it nonetheless, probably multiple times. But yeah, we will see what happens. Number 2 is the new Frankenstein movie, and this one, of course, starring Oscar Isaac. I'm trying to think. I'm kind of in a state right now where it's like he's the actor I'm thinking of, right? But yeah, so this is just I think the Frankenstein story, just in general, is really cool. And I am very excited to see this one. Of course, Guillermo del Toro is directing it. And Oscar Isaac, I think, is just such a phenomenal actor. Actor. And I think this, especially with something like this, I think he can really nail. Especially after watching like Moon Knight, really shows the how good he is in certain roles. I don't think Tron and X-Men, or I don't think Star Wars and X-Men gave him great roles to begin with, but I'm excited for this. I think this is gonna be pretty cool. I would like to see it in theaters. I think this would be a fun one to see in theaters. I think it's only either it's only in theaters for 2 weeks, because it comes on Netflix 2 weeks after it comes in theaters, but I think it's limited. It's a limited release, but I don't know if it's staying in theaters after it's on Netflix. I am thinking not, but I'm not. Yeah, I don't really know. But yeah, nonetheless, I think this will be a pretty fun movie. I think this will, be just I think it's just gonna be cool. I think it's gonna be a neat, interpretation of the story. Guillermo del Toro, of course, is a really great director, and I think him with this story, I think, could make something pretty special. So I'm excited for this. And finally, at number 1, completely forgot this movie was coming out. But we have Wake Up Dead Man closing out the year. I absolutely love murder mysteries, and I absolutely love Knives Out and Glass Onion. Knives Out is just such a phenomenal movie. My murder mystery story I wrote last year was definitely inspired by Knives Out, because I love that movie very much. I think it's just such a creative and unique way to tell murder mystery that has the same tropes and stuff that murder mysteries have had since their inception. Taking that Agatha Christie, the murder mystery vibe and putting a unique spin on it, with a great cast. Both movies have such a great cast, and they're so creative in the way that they present these murder mysteries. It's so unconventional, but so unique, so creative and fun. And of course, it's very, very, unexpected throughout the whole thing. Like, it's very, very, very unpredictable. So Wake Up Dead Man, I think is going to be pretty cool. Of course, you have Daniel Craig back, and let's see, I kind of forgot the cast for it. I know it's Jeremy Renner is in there. I think Mila Kunis is in it as well. Jeremy Renner, Andrew Scott, Josh Brolin, Glenn Close. I mean, it's just such a crazy, another crazy cast for this one, and I think it's gonna be pretty cool. I think especially mixing it with like the this, I don't know if I'd say like church kind of thing. It's almost like Exorcist vibes from the trailer. But yeah, I think it's gonna be another creative one. I think either way, it's gonna be another creative murder mystery. I trust Rian Johnson very, very much. Really, with Rian Johnson, I trust him with anything but Star Wars. So I'm very excited for the movie, and I think just because of how much I love the first two Knives Out movies, it is my most anticipated for movie of the rest of the year. All right, so that is our movie segment. So that was pretty fun, and yeah. All right, so next up, this is a very I feel like unique concept, or a unique thing we're talking about here, a unique topic for our video game segment, because it's not really like the timing. It's just not like something that's super relevant, but it's relevant to me. I would like to talk about this. So because I just played probably the most unique game I've ever played, just because it's not at all the kind of game I play, nor is it on the kind of platform I play games on. So this is definitely gonna be a unique segment, but I really want to talk about this, especially from my perspective as a long time Nintendo fan. So yeah, I think I mentioned in my last podcast, and I mentioned it a couple times on Twitter, but if you are new, if you haven't heard anything, whatever, I recently, well, first of all, the Last of Us show, I want to talk about that, but so The Last of Us, I just played the game. I've had a PS3 for a very long time. We'll get into that, but I would like to talk about, because I just finished The Last of Us like 2 days ago, and I want to talk about it because, like I said, I've been a Nintendo fan my entire life, and I've been playing Mario and Kirby and all those kind of games for my entire life. I'm so used to those kind of games, and The Last of Us is PlayStation and not anything like those games. So I want to talk about this a little bit. So of course we're going to be skipping our icebreaker because this is basically what I've been playing. It's like my review of what I've been playing. So first of all, I'll go back into some history, kind of educate you all on what's happening here. So first of all, I've had a PS3 for as long as I can remember. My parents got it years and years and years ago, probably even before me, because they wanted a Blu-ray player. And so I have a PS3 Slim, and we have had that for years, but we never play games on it. We just usually play movies on it and stuff. And we have a couple games, but I never have played much on there. And of course, like I said, I've been a Nintendo gamer my whole life. I don't own any other non-Nintendo consoles. It's only the PS3 that is in my house, pretty much. That is something else that's not Nintendo. So I was basically introduced to Nintendo as a kid. My dad showed me the original Mario game on NES, And then in 2015, he bought me a Wii U because I really wanted to play Super Mario Maker. And that game, and then included with it was Nintendo Land and Mario 3D World. It was a fancy deluxe edition. Since then, I've been a huge Nintendo fan. I got the Switch in 2017. Just recently, I just got the Switch 2. I've been playing the Switch or Nintendo games for my whole life. But at the same time, pretty much all of my friends have not. All my friends play Xbox and PlayStation, and that's just what they grew up with. So yeah. I have really never played any PlayStation games. Really, I only play Nintendo first-party games. So, which is why I get the Nintendo systems, because it's not like I'm getting them to play the games on other consoles. I'm getting them to play the exclusive Nintendo games because that's what I like. I like Mario games, the Kirby games. All of these games are, the ones I've played for my entire life. So, The Last of Us show came out in 2023. And I already knew about the game when the show was announced. My friends have had the game for a while, and they, absolutely love it. And, but yeah, I never really knew too much about it. The only part of the game I'd seen was I watched my friend play the opening scene of it. I think it was like pretty much the whole opening I saw from when, the game starts to Sarah being killed. I think I had seen that whole thing, which is why when I watched the show and I saw that first episode, I was like, wow, this is really faithful to the game. And then I ended up, of course, loving the show. I thought it was such a fun show. And of course, I didn't know any of the story or anything prior to that, so it was a big surprising thing. And then The Last of Us Season 2 came out this year. And The Last of Us Season 2, watching that, was kind of where I was like, I kind of want to play the game. Because I've had a PS3 for so long. And the game came out originally on PS3. And I was thinking I can probably get the game for pretty cheap on the PS3. Because I think now there's there's 2 remakes of it. And I think the third one's coming out. There's like the one that was for PS4. There's another remake for PS5. And now I think there's like a complete edition with Part 1 and 2 together coming to PS5. So I was like, the original PS3 version is probably pretty cheap online. And I ended up finding it at a game store, as I mentioned in my last episode. I went to a game store and they had it there for only like $15. So I bought the game and I've been playing it, and I played it for the past week. I beat it on Saturday night. I beat the game. And yeah, so I want to talk about this game because it is such a different experience to anything I've ever played, because these are just not the kind of games I play. Really, the closest I've played is the very little bit of Zelda, just the perspective there. Metroid, I guess, is technically like a shooter, even though it's first person, not third person. It is like a shooter game that's more adventure-like, 3D worlds. And then, what was I just thinking? Fortnite. Fortnite was, I think, honestly, me playing Fortnite for as many years as I did is really the only reason I was decent at The Last of Us, in my opinion. Because I played, especially during COVID, I played for 2-3 years straight. I was playing Fortnite all the time, and I don't know if I'd say I was great at it, but I was familiar. I was, used to the controls. And of course, it's the same style as in The Last of Us, shooting guns, third person. It's the same kind of game. And I think now The Last of Us I was kind of worried about. I kind of mentioned this before just on Twitter, I guess, probably, or whatever, which is just my, I don't know if I'd say confidence, but my, I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but my resistance, I guess, to play certain games because I don't know if I will like them, and I don't want to pay for a game that I don't end up liking. It's kind of how I was with Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door last year when that came out on Switch. I was gonna get it, and then I was like, I feel like I'm not gonna finish this game. I feel like just because it's an RPG, it's a different game than I'm used to. It's not like, I'm used to platformers and action adventure games, not really RPG style games. So I was nervous about getting that at first, but I ended up, of course, getting it and loving it. So there's plenty of games before that I have bought and have just never finished. Breath of the Wild I got for Christmas one year. I wanted that really bad, and I've just, like I said earlier, I just never got into it. I just played a very little bit of it, but I just couldn't get into it, so I never finished it, which it kind of stinks. So I was nervous about The Last of Us. Now really, I wasn't as nervous because it was only $15. It wasn't like a huge thing. But also at the same time, especially with the Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, because I have been, like I mentioned, I have been kind of playing some of the older games. I've played, of course, I love the original. I've loved that forever, and I in the past couple of years, I've tried Link to the Past. Recently, I've been playing. I tried Wind Waker earlier this year because it was out on Switch, or Switch 2 with a GameCube thing, and I enjoyed those games. I didn't play too much of them, but I was enjoying them, and really the reasons I stopped, especially for Wind Waker, that was the one I stopped a little bit premature, but I really only stopped because there was other stuff. Like, I think that was like Donkey Kong was coming out or something. And I think Mario Kart was out at the same time too, and I wanted to play that all the time. So, getting back to The Last of Us, the thing with The Last of Us is that actually, let me continue what I was talking about with Zelda, because the reason I think I enjoyed playing those games more were because they were a bit more linear, whereas Breath of the Wild is very much open world, which I think is hard for me to get the hang of. Because there isn't like a direct way to go. Like, you kind of have to figure that out for yourself. So I think open world games are really the ones that are hard for me to get into. I think a more linear experience is better. And The Last of Us is a very linear game, which I actually like a lot. TTYD, very linear, and I loved it. So I think it's just the games I'm used to. It's the games that I'm good at, getting through them. So I was a little nervous for Last of Us because I'm definitely not used to that style of game, but I was still intrigued. So I played it, and I very, very much, I am finding very creative ways to say these, such weird ways to say these. I love the game very much. I was much better at it, first of all, than I thought I would be. I think I was playing on the normal mode. I wasn't on the easy mode. I think I was doing the normal mode for the entire game. I didn't change the difficulty. And to be honest, there were only a couple places I got stuck. I think I only looked on like a guide online, like a video guide or something like that, once. I think there were a couple times where I had to have the game offer a hint, which will do sometimes, but I mean, it doesn't do a huge thing anyway. Sometimes I just wouldn't see something because there's a lot to see. So, oh man, my neck is really, sorry about that. But yeah, so The Last of Us was just, like I said, it's just such a unique experience because I'm not used to that kind of game at all. And I thought it was fun for a lot of reasons. And I think it did a very good job of being a game that adapted for different kinds of players, even without the difficulty settings. And I think especially it did a nice job of balancing how you are playing, and it kind of helps you with through the game with that. And the example I can kind of talk about from that is there were sometimes I would come up to an encounter with either just people or zombies and clickers and all those kind of things. And there were times where I was fine. I had a ton of ammo. I could just fire away and kill everyone. But then there were also times where I didn't really have any ammo. And a lot of those cases, you really can't go backwards very far. And, try to collect stuff again. So but the game does a nice job, because a lot of the time the game I think it balances that pretty well. I don't know exactly how the ammo dropping works. Because sometimes I would kill someone and they'd have a bunch of ammo left for me. And I don't know if that changes depending on how much you already have. But was definitely nice. The game does a nice job with that. And it has a lot of nice features with like a shiv is an example. If there's a couple of clickers, you can like sneak up to them and kill them. It's no other creatures will hear you. So that was pretty nice. And but moving on from the combat in general is very good. I think it is very good. I think just getting from item to item, the way you get the way you use items, I think it was actually pretty good. It was pretty easy and pretty slick for the most part. It was a little annoying sometimes. Like sometimes you have to, hit one of the things on the left center or left up down, something like that, to go to a certain item. And then sometimes if there's like a wheel of things, if it's more than like depending on how big your holster is, you might have to like land on one and then hold X and then cycle through a couple. That was a little bit annoying, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world. I think it could have been much worse. So it wasn't too bad. Honestly, getting used to the controls in general was not too bad. I am, of course, not used to a PlayStation controller, especially where the big difference with the PlayStation controller is that the X button, which is where the B button is located on Nintendo controllers, is the button you use that's basically the A button. So at first there were a lot of times where when I wanted me to click something and press like a button to continue, I would hit the circle button thinking it was the A button, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's not the right button. I actually got used to the controls pretty quickly. I think at first it can seem like there's a lot because you can like craft a ton of stuff and there's a ton of guns you can hold, and I feel like at first it can feel like there's a lot of different controls you have, and it can be kind of confusing, but it didn't take me too long. I think by the time it was in the fall, probably even before that really, I would say I was used to the controls. I think really it was by the time like when you're in a truck after you're in that town with Bill, and then you get attacked by these guys and then eventually meet Henry and Sam. I think around then is where I start when I was really used to the controls. The controls aren't terrible. They are pretty good. They're pretty sleek across the board. And I think just talking about the game itself for a second, I think the game does a great job in the settings and how everything is structured. It doesn't feel like things are too long. It doesn't feel like segments drag on at all. Everything feels like they're at the perfect length. And I will say one of the interesting things with this game that's I think very different from most Nintendo games is that these games, and I think just most PlayStation games like this in general, they don't make it clear. I feel like Nintendo games make it very clear when you can, take a break. Especially, some games that literally says you should probably take a break before you get tired. But I just think in general, there's a lot of, the structure of games. It makes it very clear when you can, take a break and then come back later, which is why typically for Nintendo games, I only play them for about an hour at a time before, sometimes more like 1 or 2 hours at a time before I, decide to take a break. Whereas with this game, I was usually playing for at least 3 to 4 hours every time. So it doesn't make it nearly as clear when you should stop playing. So it was definitely an interesting thing because, like I said, Nintendo games aren't like that. So there was something interesting with the game, but you do kind of get used to like finding like when it's a good spot to take a break. So yeah, I think just the way the game is structured in general is pretty good across the board. I think it does a nice job. And but then you really get into the story, and that's where this game really excels. The story. It's such a phenomenal story. And I think I actually rewatched some of the show, and I think looking back, it's actually kind of, I think the show, I think changed, like some of the changes it made to the story. They're not huge changes, but I don't like them. Like I like the original story. I think it was more impactful playing the game than watching the show. But it is mostly a pretty faithful adaptation, the show is. So yeah, that's that. And then I think really another big difference I came across compared to Nintendo stuff is gameplay. I think Nintendo games put gameplay front and center. That is the big part of the games. And then the PlayStation games, like The Last of Us, they really don't the same degree. It's pretty simple, walking controls, and then of course it's just the combat. But I think just in general, like playing a Nintendo game, it's just fun to control the characters. Like I've been thinking of Donkey Kong Bonanza so much. It's just so fun to control Donkey Kong with how many moves he has and how simple it is to pull them all off. And how well he moves too. Like it is very, 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 missing a word again. Just the controls work very well. Like you start to move the control stick and then immediately Donkey Kong starts moving. Last of Us, it's not as great. Also, a weird thing is that his Joel's walking speed would keep changing depending on where you were, which I thought was kind of weird. It was like, I want to go fast. I don't want to just walk a little bit here. I want to go. So, but yeah, and then of course, you have the phenomenal story and the huge cutscenes and stuff. So, and it was just, first of all, it was just crazy to hear, real dialogue in this game because, of course, text boxes are all the rage in Nintendo. So, yeah. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty good way to sum it up. I think The Last of Us was just, like I said, it's just such a unique experience to what I've played before because I'm not used to that kind of a game. And but I really was into it, and I just think it's such a different experience than playing a Nintendo game for a variety of reasons. So I think Nintendo games are just so much more like kind of laid back, honestly. Even if they are difficult, I think they're just usually more laid back in the way they're designed. Whereas I think these games definitely have a lot more to them in terms of their controls, their narrative, the characters themselves. Much more cinematic, I feel like, in general. So yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed the game, though. That's the big takeaway. I thoroughly enjoyed playing through The Last of Us. It was a phenomenal game. And I think while it took me a little bit of time to get used to, I think once I did, I was in. Like for someone who's never plays PlayStation games, I was in the game pretty quickly, and I was excited to see what happens. And I think that's just the game in general has so many crazy moments to it, or in it. I mean, the game literally starts with Joel's daughter being shot. It's a crazy way to start the game. And just in general, there's so many emotional moments. And of course, Joel and Ellie are just such amazing characters. They're just so fun, and their chemistry is so great too. Just hearing them talk to each other is just so fun. And you really don't get that in Nintendo games because it's just not how Nintendo games are. You know what I mean? Because even though the characters are great, there's no dialogue between them. I mean, Mario games, he never talks. You know what I mean? You just get text boxes, which I think is a different experience. I'm not saying like it's a bad one. It's just it's something unique about the Last of Us and stuff. Saying that, however, I do think that Nintendo games are ones that are very easy to just pick up and play. I think the Last of Us games like this, you need to you kind of need to get into it again before, you can't just go back into it. You know what I mean? It doesn't kind of work like that. I just finished The Last of Us, and I don't know the next time I'm gonna touch that game. So I really don't. I don't know the next time I'm gonna touch that game. Which, it's not because the game, like, I didn't like it, I'm done with it. It's just because, I played it, I'm done it. You know what I mean? It's like a movie. You know what I mean? You watch the movie, you maybe look at some stuff online, hear people talk about it, and then, like, you don't watch it for a while. So, yeah, I think that's such a, interesting part of the experience there, because then Nintendo games you have, Donkey Kong I played once, and then I played again. I kept playing over and over. And I think also in general, just Nintendo games, I feel like a lot of them have, I think a lot of Nintendo games have, ways that you can go back into the game and explore things. They have a lot of, the worlds in the games, they want you to explore them thoroughly and find all the secrets and stuff inside them. Whereas The Last of Us was very much not that. So, but I think that's the main stuff. I think I covered pretty much everything I wanted to talk about there. So yeah, that's my review on The Last of Us. I think if you've never played this game, even as a Nintendo fan, I think this is a great step into, playing if you want to try other platforms like PlayStation, Xbox games, something other than just first-party Nintendo kind of stuff. I think The Last of Us is a good start. Mainly because of how linear it is. I think that does help. So yeah, that definitely gets my, seal of approval. I definitely, see it as one of the, best games of all time that everyone says. I don't know if I would put it on my top 5, at least not yet. But I will say that it is definitely, a game that you can appreciate for a lot of things. The story is the main one for me, honestly. It's just such a phenomenal story. All right, that's our gaming segment. I was very excited to talk about that, but that's it. That's our gaming segment. So we're done with that, and we have one more segment left. And like our last couple episodes, it is our sports segment, which is another Phillies talk. so we have some just normal headlines to talk about, nothing too crazy. So I'm recording this at night on Monday, pretty late. So the Phillies, I saw won, of course, today. They won, I think it was 12-7 was the final. A little bit closer just because of the end, because of a new pitcher, making his major league debut, who's kind of struggling a little bit, allowed a few runs. But ultimately was able to nail down the win for the Phils. And so I think the situation here in the division is pretty good for the Phillies. I think they're just in general, they're in a good spot. I don't think there's a lot to be worried about with them right now. I think they were on a little bit of a skid. They were struggling a little bit in DC, which, after sweeping the Rangers, and then only winning one game in Cincinnati wasn't the most ideal thing, but they are still definitely up there. Their current record is 72-53. They are among the best teams in baseball. I believe they are right now the second best team in baseball. They have, and I mean, the only reason they're not the best team in baseball is because of how insane the Brewers are. They're 79-45. That's what the Brewers are. The Phillies are 72-53. So, yeah, that is just how it is, And I think the They are currently 5.5 games up on the New York Mets, which is really great. Honestly, I feel like at this point, even if I don't think the Mets are going to be like terrible for the rest of the season, I think they're going to start to gain some, quality again. But I do think the Phillies are going to run away with the division anyway. The Phillies are only a game above the Dodgers, though. Is that right? Yeah, a game above the Dodgers for the second seed. So, although in my opinion, I don't really care if they get the third seed and have to play the wild card round, especially with what happened last year. I don't really care. I think being in Philly, playing either the Mets or Padres, I think we can definitely beat those teams. We already have, so I'm not really nervous about that. So even if we do have to do that, I think we will be A-okay, as Bryson Stott's walk-up song says. I just don't know if this team can go through another, long break. I mean, they didn't have a big problem like they did last year after the All-Star break, but, you never know, because this team definitely is built on staying consistent and, so they're usually not great after long breaks. But yeah, so we'll see what happens with that, but I think they're in pretty good shape right now at 72 and 53. I'm actually curious about what pace they're on right now. Let's take a look here. They are currently on pace for 93 wins. I believe that's right. 93. That'd be 93 and 69. Wait, hold on. That doesn't actually matter. Yeah, okay. So they are currently on pace for about 93, 94 wins, which will still nail them a pretty high place in the National League standings. But I do think they're going to do a little better than that, maybe 96, maybe 97. But, yeah, again, we'll see what happens there. And then, so that's that for the Phils. Couple of interesting things happened with the Nationals. Nola had a rough return. And, of course, you have Wheeler out now for who knows how long. Personally, I trust Christopher Sanchez. And I think Ranger Suarez did great today, so I do trust him. I trust the two of them to lead this team because Aaron Nola, I feel like, is struggling way too much. And I don't know what's happening with him, but he is just not himself at all. He hasn't been for a while. I think he's just getting older. I think that's kind of what it is. So, yeah, it does stink, but even without Wheeler, which hopefully we'll have him by October, but I do think I trust Sanchez and Suarez, especially Sanchez. He is doing very, very well. Next up, we have Bohm. Of course, he had a nice return as well. He came back. And then a little thing here I just want to mention, which was an interesting move Rob Thompson made. So Friday, we were in a very tight situation late in the game, and we ended up having Duran pitch. Or we did not have Duran pitch. We had I think it was a Ryan Kerkering. And of course, we ended up losing that game, which was a huge thing there. But then on Saturday, I believe I'm getting these dates right, but on Saturday, Duran pitched. Even though we had a few runs extra, he ended up pitching, and of course he ended up getting hit. And it's I feel like, I mean, sure, anything can happen, but it's I think if they had him in the other day, I think he would have been able to close that door, and we possibly could have won that game, giving us the series win. I think our bullpen is very shaky. I don't fully trust them still. Of course, I trust one-run situations of Duran's pitching, and I think some guys like Lazar and Strom are doing pretty decent. But yeah, I think when you have him available, when you have Duran available, use him. I don't get why you don't use him. Use him. So, and then the last thing I want to talk about, something that came up yesterday during the Little League Classic. Mets and Mariners squared off in Williamsport. And on the air, they had Rob Manfred, the MLB commissioner, on. and he was talking a little bit about his interest in a possible geographical realignment and expansion in the MLB. Now, I do not like Rob Manfred. I think he is a clown, and I think this just kind of, puts fuel on the fire, honestly. Expansion, I don't have a problem with. I don't have a problem with giving more cities teams. I don't think that's the issue. I do like where it is now with all the divisions being even with 5 teams. But I wouldn't hate seeing like one AL, one NL be added. I think that'd be cool. Maybe you could add a team in Portland. Carolina could use a team. Tennessee, in like Nashville. I think that'd be cool. Maybe finally we'll get the new Expos. Maybe their Twitter account will finally be able to relax and watch some of their baseball back. Give them what they want. But so I think the expansion I don't have a problem with. It's the geographical realignment that it just sounds stupid. These are divisions that you've had for so long. And I understand the whole thing with less travel and stuff and blah, 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 blah. But I don't know. I don't like it. I feel like the divisions already are pretty close to each other. And I think it would be harder to get closer. I feel like really there's no division that has Dallas in the East division kind of a difference. I mean, Dallas being in the NFC East is crazy, but I don't think there's anything crazier than that in the MLB. So it's like you're going to have to travel anyway if you want these teams to play these teams. If you want the Phillies to play the Dodgers, guess what? One of them is going to have to travel across the country to the other side. And so I don't like the geographical realignment. I don't like that at all. I think they should there's much better ways to do that than realigning the divisions that have been like that for years and years and years and years. So yeah, that is pretty much it for that that segment. And yeah, that's it for that segment really, not just that thing. That's the main stuff there. Not a lot of huge Phillies talk stuff, but some headlines, some stuff that's going on, and yeah, so that's where we are right now, and now we are at the conclusion of this podcast. So yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this podcast today. It's been a pretty fun episode. I think there's just some interesting topics to talk about today. Of course, there's a lot of movies coming out later this year that I'm excited for. I really wanted to talk about The Last of Us, and then of course there was some Philly stuff going on, and as we're closing into September, there's some stuff. So yeah, that is I think that's gonna do it for today's podcast. It actually turned out to be a little shorter than I thought. I don't think I talked about the movies as long as I thought I would, and the Phillies talk I think was a little bit shorter. I think this is the range we're looking at for these episodes. I think an hour and a half I actually like for now. I think when you look at most podcasts, I think a lot of them are like 2-hour episodes, but I like an hour and a half. I think it's not super long, so I think an hour to 20, hour and 30, that is a pretty good range. And yeah, so that is going to do it for today's podcast. Thank you all very much for watching or listening. And again, like I said at the beginning of the video, if you are still watching this on YouTube, I am now on the other, on Spotify, Apple, and Amazon. If you want to check those out from YouTube, I'll leave them in the description. All the links I've also tweeted all over my Twitter account, so you can check those out as well. And yeah, that's going to do it. So thank you all for listening very much. Next episode is coming out next Tuesday, August 26th. And yeah, I will be back then. So thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And until next week, see ya. Yeah, bye.